how we can take our rendering. I showed how to render it last time. I want to show how you can take that rendered image and put it into After Effects. Remember, these first assignments, the first assignment is really just about understanding a little bit more about the interface, selecting points, selecting edges, selecting faces, some of the tools. It's not going to be a portfolio piece. Looking around, most of you are at the point where you're ready to just render it off and get it turned in, okay? Don't worry about turning it in today, but I just want you to see that next part of the After Effects portion of this. To actually take your sequence and make it into a movie that other people can see. Back in After Effects, you go to File, Import, and I may have done this again or already, but I'm going to do it again. Import File. You go and find your file. So I will find mine on here. 2510, Miniroom. Renders. There it is. Okay. So you click on one of the files, it automatically recognizes that you have a sequence. So there's your sequence. So then I can drag this into my composition. Okay, so that's all I have to do is drag that right into here, and there's my video. If I click and drag and play it, that means that I have been successful, my video played. Now, if it doesn't play, typically that means that I didn't render out the correct camera. So then I would want to go back into Cinema. I'll open my file again so we can see it. Apparently I have all my stuff hidden. When we go to add this to the render queue, sure. Remember we have this camera option down here. That's what tells it which camera to use. Now it should automatically default to the camera that you're in, the camera that you've set up. It doesn't always, okay? So if it doesn't do it, then just make sure you pick the correct camera, which is camera. Not default camera, but regular camera, which is the default. That's not confusing at all, I'm sure. This one here is this actual camera. If I click off the white here, let me just close that. If I click off this white, we don't see another camera listed, but we are in fact inside of a camera. Okay, so that's the default camera, but by default, we render through this camera. Okay. Oops. If you are confused by it, just give it a name. Render cam. That way you know that when you do add this to the render queue, that you can choose that camera. I don't know why I didn't say my correct. Oh, let me delete these. I had too many names there. Hold on. Add to render queue. Yes, save it, please. There it goes. So now that I've renamed it, you'll see render cam pops up in this list. So that way it's a little bit more obvious as to that's the camera I need to make sure is picked. You could have multiple cameras in your scene. The next project we're going to do, the title sequence, we're going to have 2 cameras in there. So we'll actually render out 2 different sequences and put them together in After Effects. Okay? Some cameras or some scenes you may have 4 or 5 cameras for specific things. Remember I talked about the crazy camera that bounces around to each item that's inside the room? We don't want that. You could have one camera that just like sweeps across this side of the room, another camera that goes here, another camera that goes there, one that zooms in, one that zooms out. You can set up cameras just like you would in the real world, okay? And you can render them all out. Then when you bring them in After Effects, it's simply a matter of chopping it up into how you want that presentation to be displayed, okay? So then you would hit this render button, and then it would go and render your stuff. Obviously, make sure it's saving to the right spot, which it automatically should be. Cool. All right. So in After Effects, I've imported my sequence. It works. I go to File, Export, Add to Render Queue. I go to the word Lossless, and I choose from here QuickTime. And then remember, if you don't have QuickTime installed, you won't see the H.264 there. I don't have QuickTime installed, so I don't have H.264. So I would pick H.264, install QuickTime, whatever. All right. There is an H.264 that'll show up in this area under Format. That's not the correct one. You want to choose QuickTime from Format. You want to choose this and choose H.264 there. We don't have audio. Everything else should be good. We give it a name. Drop it into our final folder. Yes. And then we hit that render button again. It'll take 2 seconds, and it's done. Okay, this is the quickest part of this. So if you came here 5 minutes before class and your rendering was done, you could literally jump into After Effects, drop your sequence in, make a movie, and be done. Okay? Now the tricky part is, if it rendered the wrong camera, that's not going to be a 5-minute job. That's going to be however long it took the original one to render. Or if something happened where your textures don't show up. So my monkey picture here, it's not a monkey, it's a gorilla. If my gorilla picture didn't show up, it's because I've moved the texture or I didn't set up my texture stuff correctly. That happens all the time, especially if you're moving from this computer to your home computer to this computer to your home computer. Sometimes those things can get messed up as to where it is because Cinema just doesn't know where the software, where that file is. Okay, so make sure that as you're doing your stuff, you're using this folder, and all of your stuff is organized in these folders. My monkey picture, my gorilla picture, is inside textures. Okay, so that when I go home, that's where it's still going to be. When I come here, it's still going to be there. Every time I come into Cinema, in this class, you go to your preferences, you go to files, right there, and you tell it which project you're working on. So I specified I'm working on Miniroom. When you go home, the same exact thing. You have to tell it where your Miniroom folder is. Otherwise, it doesn't know where the gorilla picture is. And if you had 20 pictures in there, it wouldn't know where else 20 pictures are. Okay? Alright, so that is that project. Should be super simple-ish to tidy that one up. Just rendering out your camera, throwing it in After Effects. Again, this one I'm not looking for anything crazy. I'm looking over here in your object list here to make sure all your items are labeled. So it's not just cube 2, cube 1, cube. It actually says bookcase 2, TV, bookcase 1, whatever that is. I don't care how it's organized as long as it is organized. There's some structure to it. Okay, and I don't mean grab everything, put it on one group, and then just call it stuff. That's not organizing. Okay, something that makes it easy for somebody else to go into your file and see exactly what stuff is. I also want to make sure all the materials down here are labeled. So here's my gorilla texture. It's called gorilla texture. Here's my room ceiling. It's called room ceiling. Here's this ugly green. It's just called matte. I don't know what that is assigned to. I don't know what it's for. Okay, so everything should have a purpose. I think this was just an example. I don't think I use it for anything. Just delete it. If you don't need something, just delete it out of there. Your layers, everything is on a layer. So I should be able to hide all of your stuff and not see anything. If I can see stuff, then I will grab it, make a new layer, and call it pictures, or whatever it is. Okay? For this assignment, that's what I'm doing. I'm going through that area, this area, and that area, those 3 areas, making sure they're all organized and nicely named. And then I'm watching the movie. Do you have lights in it? Do the lights have shadows? Does your camera move? Do you have the basic things that we created together plus a couple other things? Okay? Super simple for this first one. Nothing like crazy. Okay? Any questions on that first assignment? Yes, ma'am.
Can you show how to record the render? Because
Yep.
we don't remember.
I don't
Okay.
remember.
Well, you... let me turn myself back on. I turned it off. There we go. All right. So I have a camera set up. Do you remember how to set up a camera? I should go back further. Go back further. Okay. This is Cinema. All right. I deleted my camera. We'll make a new camera and go from there. Okay. Feel free at any point, if we do get to that where we're like, we forgot how to make a camera, let's do it. Okay. I think I restarted recording again. Yes. Okay. So we need to create a camera. So we can do it here, this little button and camera, or we can go over to create and camera and create it there. There's a bunch of cameras. For right now, keep it simple. Just a regular camera. Okay. The dots here, this dot here, this dark line that's right there, that's what our camera is seeing, is the stuff between that, like what's in the center. So if we don't have that set up correctly, we're not going to render out what we want to render out. Okay. So I'm going to go up to render settings, and I do this all the time. Every time I create a camera, I'm already trained to know the aspect ratio, so I know it. If it's wrong, it screws up everything else, okay? So get in the habit of just double checking. Your render settings should always be 960 by 540, okay? Until we do a still, a big image, right now 960 by 540 for all videos. Okay, so that's all I had to do is click the little gear. Nicely in other software, the little gear clapper is settings. That's universal apparently. I need to set up my camera so that I can get to what I want to see in the first place. Right now, I'm not looking through my camera. See how that little icon next to the camera is blacked out? I have my camera created, but I'm not looking through it. Yeah, I know that too if I zoom out and I can see the camera. Okay? That way I can tell, okay, I'm definitely not looking through the camera. I click on the little black thing. Now I'm in the camera because now it's white. So now I'm in the camera. Alright. I can do this with the camera selected and me in it. I can do this with the camera selected and me in it. I can't zoom in and out with me in the camera and it selected. I'm assuming it's a bug. I don't know why they would have it like that. It just seems stupid. I have to deselect if I want to zoom in and out. Okay? So I'm physically inside the camera. The same controls you were using 2 seconds ago to navigate around your scene, the same controls I'm using to move around this camera. Okay? So if I want to get closer to something, I'm holding Alt and right-clicking and dragging. If I want to spin around, Alt, left-click and drag. If I want to move, Alt, middle-click and drag. Okay? So all those controls are the same. Don't think that this is any more difficult than that. It's not. Okay? It's literally just you're in the camera, now position what you want to see. Okay? You're looking through the viewfinder of your, you guys know what real cameras are, right? Not phones, but real cameras. Okay? You're looking through the viewfinder of a real camera. So I want to set this up to be what I want to see at the beginning of my shot. Now, like right now, it's not letting me Alt and middle click and drag up. I don't know why it's not letting me do that. It's just not. So sometimes I'll select an object and hit O. O is our framing. And then it'll let me do it. Who knows why, right? Just deal with the software. All right. So this is how I want my shot to start off, okay? So I'm at frame, I'll be at frame 0, and that's how I want my camera to start. That's how I want my movie to start. So I'm going to rewind this to 0. I'm going to make sure my camera's selected, and I have to set a keyframe for my camera to say, at frame 0, be right there. So I go to my attributes. I make sure I'm in my camera. I go to my coordinates and I click and drag on the position and rotation. Okay? You don't need to worry about what any of those numbers are. We just have to know that those numbers are where the camera is at. So position and rotation are always the ones that we're going to keyframe. Okay? Frame 0 be here. At frame 90, which is my end of my animation, I want to be somewhere else. So I deselect the camera. Stupid. I spin around. Nothing really over there. I'll just go to my bookcase. I can hit O. My camera will immediately jump to that bookcase. And that's how I want to end it, is on this. Okay? So I reselect my camera. Re-keyframe my stuff. Now you should notice a keyframe here and a keyframe there. You need 2 keyframes in order to have motion, a start and an end for everything. Okay? So if you only see one of these little blue ticks things down here, you don't have 2 keyframes. Okay? So now if I were to click and drag on the time marker, there's my animation. Boom, boom. That's all that has to be, right? If I want to add something a little bit fancier, typically what I'll do is I'll go about halfway through, and I may deselect the camera again. Maybe rotate a little bit. Reselect the camera. Re-add another keyframe in there. So now I have 3 keyframes. One at 0, one at 49, and one at 90. Then I go and hit play again, or scrub through. There we go. It's gorgeous. Now, there's a reason that I didn't set up 0, then set up 50, then set up 90. Does anyone want to guess what the reason is? For fun? Right, smooths it out, right? So if I go from 0 to 49 and I move my camera somewhere, and then I go from 49 to 90 and set my camera somewhere else, I don't really have a good marker as to how many frames or how big of a distance I'm going from here to here, right? So what could happen is from 0 to 49, I move this far. And then from 49 to 90, I move this far. So what's going to happen is my camera's going to go whoosh and then go super slow, okay? So if I set up these two, I already have my center. So I'm basically just taking that center point and just pulling it back a little bit. That way I'm going in more of an arc fashion than going this crazy thing. Now just to kind of show you that from cinema's point of view, there's my camera's path. Now you see all the little dots that are on the line? All those dots are my frames. So where the frames are very bunched up, those are lots of frames happening here. Slow motion is happening in this area. Where the frames are further spaced apart, the dots are further spaced apart, it's going to go faster. Okay? So is this going faster or slower than the other side? Slower. Okay? Because those points are bunched up. I'm not traveling as far of a distance. If I want to correct that so I do have more of a smoother motion from one side to the other, all I have to do is grab this little marker and move it. So if it's going slower, I compress. And you don't have to know that. Just go one way. If that looks like they're evening the dots out, perfect. If not, then you go the other way. So you see how as I do that, it's spreading the dots further apart on one and closer together in the other area. You just have to jump out of the camera, okay, so that you can see it. Then I can go back in the camera, then I can rewind, hit the play button.
Oh, nice.
Okay. Now there is this little like hiccup there. I don't care about the hiccup for this assignment. Like I said, this is basically a crap assignment. It's something we're throwing together. This is 2 weeks into the class, pretty much today. That's as good as we're going to get this assignment, right? We could spend more time. I could make the wood actually look like wood. I can make the picture frame look like a picture frame and the glass look like glass and the lights look perfect. We don't need it for this assignment, okay? That's not what this assignment is for, okay? So that's as far as I want you to take the camera motion. You set up a start and end, I'm happy with that, as long as it doesn't go crazy. You should not have more than 3 keyframes in there. If you want a new camera, because you really want to push it further, add another camera, do the same exact thing, okay? You can add 50 cameras in here if you'd like. Alright, so now I'm ready to, let's say, render this out. I have lights in my scene. So just to refresh our memories on the lights, I added 2 lights into my scene. This light here, which is just a regular point light. I'll pull it out so you can see it. And then I have another light there, which is, again, a regular point light. The intensity we adjusted. Okay, you can't have 2 lights. You can have 2 lights with 100% intensity, but typically your scene is going to be blown out. So you play that game of balancing the lights in the room. Okay, think of your lighting like you were in a pitch black room and you're literally controlling the illumination of those spots. Okay, and you're trying to light up the entire area. If I have 1 light in there and it's 1,000 watts, it's going to be blindingly bright in that room. Now I add another light, it's crazy. So I need to tone those lights down so that they make more sense in that room. So I play with the intensity to get the lights where I want them to be. We also added soft shadow maps. Again, we could play with other stuff, but for now, just keep it simple. Soft shadow maps. I went to shadows. I took my density down to 71. I took the shadow map up to 1,000, and that's all I adjusted for that. Okay? So I created a light. Right there. I added shadows, took the shadow map to 1,000, took the density down, gave it a little bit of color. You didn't have to, but I did. And then I played with the intensity until it looks good. Oops. If I hit Control R, I can see what it looks like. I can see my chair is floating because the shadow is like not touching it. Oh, that happened. Don't blame Austin. Try that again. Oops. Still a little bit. So if I just middle click here, then I can definitely see, okay, that needs to come down. You can even stick it through the ground a little bit. That's cool. All right, that's good. All right. Perfect. So I have 2 lights in the scene, no big deal. Now I need to render it. So I go to my render settings, and this is where we set up all the other stuff. So we've set up our size of our document that's going to render out. Resolution, we don't care about. This stuff is automatically set. This should be 1 automatically. This is 30. That doesn't matter either for what we're doing. The frame range, we need to make sure that we set it to manual and then specify our start and our end. Okay? We're starting at frame 0 and we're going to frame 90. If this is a whole movie, we're starting at 0 and we're working to 10,384, whatever that number happens to be. Okay? However long your animation is, that's what you're doing. If you've added more frames simply by typing a bigger number here, you would go to that one. Some people asked already, how can I make this longer? You go to this spot and you type in 120 or 240 or whatever it is, and you'll get more frames, more animation. Okay? Keep in mind that because we're at 30 frames a second, how long something is going to be. So how long is my animation currently? What was that? 3 seconds. That's it. Okay? This is 3 seconds of animation, 90 frames. That's not a long time. Imagine Pixar or any of those where they have 2 hours of stuff they're rendering out. But don't worry about fields. Yep. Under save, we're going to go to save here. This is where we specify where we're saving our stuff to, the mini room, but that shouldn't be a big, we shouldn't need to really set anything there. Actually, no. Oh, that's just regular images, yeah. Okay. We need to specify this is a name.number.extension. So After Effects, when I double click and I go to import, what it's doing is it's looking at the name of the file and then it's trying to find an order for those files to go in. It doesn't know what order we made those. After Effects are just random files. So we have to make sure they're named name.number.extension. And what After Effects will do is it will bring all of those right into After Effects in the exact order they're rendered out. Okay, so frame 4 will be frame 4 in After Effects. If we click the wrong one here, there's a very good chance After Effects will say nope, and you'll have to re-render it again. So pick name.number.extension. If you need a magnifying glass to see the dots, bring a magnifying glass. All this stuff is fine. None of the other stuff, except for anti-aliasing, we have to worry about. Anti-aliasing, we just set it to best. For now, best is the best setting. That's it. Okay. Now, we can render this out 2 different ways. One, we hit render, add to render queue. I will save my project. I will delete the other one that's up there already. Make sure your camera is picked. You'll see that I wasn't in my camera. I wasn't automatically looking through the camera. So it defaulted to the regular camera, not the one I'm rendering out. So I need to make sure I pick the correct camera. My render settings is what it's using. Where do I want to output these files to? So I would click on the dots here and tell it to put them in my renders. And I'm going to give this a number. Miniroom version 2, because I already rendered out version 1. And then I click this little play button. If I had more than one camera, I would just take this and duplicate it. Oops. Wrong program. No, that should have worked. Where's my duplicate button? Clear, edit. Alright, I'll just click this add render queue. Okay, so I can add this, and then I can click on a new camera. Now here's where it becomes tricky. Let's say that I want one camera from 0 to 90, then I want another camera from 91 to 180. I have to do basically 2 different renderings. I can't do all of those in one thing. Okay, I can't say render this camera from here, render this camera from there. I would have to render out this one, and then when it finishes, change my render settings, and then render out that one. Alright, so there's my camera. This is where it's going to go. Why do I care where it's going to go?
Because you want to know where it's going to save.
Right, I need to know where it's going to save. Even in the advanced classes, the one after this, which is 2520, and the one after that is 2540, we render out just like this. And they have to know where those files are going to go. And if you don't know, you're going to end up with 120 files in someone else's folder that hopefully they don't delete, or 90 files. So then we just hit this play button. And that play button goes through, and it's going to render out each one of these. So here's my estimated time, about 7 minutes. You can see it's kind of bouncing around. If you get it's an estimate, okay? So right now I have these items in my scene. It's taking this long per frame. You have this many frames. It does simple math to figure out how long it's going to take. If I have nothing in my scene and then I pan over to a dragon fighting a dinosaur, then it's going to take longer. So it may say, 2 minutes here, but by the time it gets in front of the dragon fighting the dinosaur, it's going to take 3 hours. So use the estimate as a rough number. It's not a for sure thing. All right, I'm going to cancel that. If you need to cancel it, you click that button. You can delete from this. Yes. The other way to render this out, remember Control R renders inside of our viewport like this. Okay. If we hit Shift R, do you want to overwrite? Yes. What this is going to do is it's going to actually render out inside the viewer so we can see each frame and save it here. So you'll see all of these. There's frame 0, there's frame 1. So this way we can actually look and see as it's rendering out what it's looking like. Okay? Again, something that's important. As I render this first frame, do you notice anything weird?
2 desks, 2 chairs.
There are 2 desks and 2 chairs. They weren't there. Oh, they were there. It's the wrong camera. Okay? See how there's no motion? Also, my view is like from up here. My initial frame I was kind of blocked in. Yes, I know that. So I'm just going to close this and cancel that. So why do you think it rendered that camera? Not because it was in the queue, because that's what I'm looking through. Okay, so right now I'm looking through the default camera. So all I have to do is click this, and then I just hit Shift R again. Yes. And now it's going to make a new folder and start rendering from the correct camera. Okay? Now, had I gone the other way, I wouldn't have known that. I would have let it go through all those 90 frames and then said, whoopsie, and had to go back and fix it and re-render it out. So there are advantages to either one. This one is actually going to use a little bit more memory because it's also displaying what it's showing while it's rendering it out, right? So the other thing you could do is, while it is rendering, there it is, what I do is I will typically just kind of pop in and grab a middle frame, and I'll just say preview it. And I'll say, yep, that's my right camera, so we should be good. We compete in a competition every year called Skills USA. And in the competition, they have one day. They start at 8 o'clock. They end around 3 o'clock. They have one day to take the idea that they're given, concept it out, storyboard it, model everything, texture everything, light, animate, render out, and put together a movie in that one day. One year a team went, they worked all day long on it, they hit the render button, they waited, wrong camera. And guess what the camera was showing? Nothing. Right? It sucked. But what are you going to do? You have to pay attention to those things. Here, it's a little bit more relaxed. We're not under the pressure of a competition. But still, we want to pay attention to those things. Okay? Now, when this is done, these files should be inside of our folder. So if I find my folder again, view details. Oh no, sorry. I have to right click and then save them. Save as. There we go. Okay, so it's making temporary files that I would then save my animation as a sequence. I would pick my file format here, so I would choose TIFF is fine, that works. Name.number from 0 to whatever the end is, and then hit OK. And then it'll actually save those files. So this way is not saving them initially. You have to go through afterwards and then tell it you want to save. So just be aware that if you do this method, that you do that. All right, stop that. All right. So lights, camera, animate the camera, change your render settings, render it out, put in After Effects, make a movie. I'm not going to grade these today. Monday when you come in, at some point during Monday's class, I will grade these. And the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to walk around to each one, and I'm going to sit at your desk with you, and you're going to open up your folder here, which should be organized, right? And inside your scene should hopefully be several different scenes because you've been saving iterations. So in case something did crap out, Not a huge deal on the first one. But you're going to open it up. I'm going to look at all your stuff that I said I was going to look at. You're going to go into your final one. You're going to open up your movie. Play it in whatever it feels like playing it in. What? Oh, because I closed it. Whatever. And then we'll watch it, and then that's it. Typically, however many points it is, maybe 4, 3, I don't know what I wrote down, but however many points it is, typically people either get the points because they have everything because it's that easy, or they miss out on a lot of stupid stuff like I rendered the wrong camera, just re-render it, or I don't have textures, or I didn't put anything else in the scene except for a cube. All right, simple stuff. All right, any questions on finishing that one up? Yes, sir.